In spite of the constant threat of war and terror on multiple fronts, Israel consistently ranks in the top 10 happiest nations on earth. The latest documentary from CBN Films reveals why the Jewish state is largely immune to social problems that plague so many Western societies. Here's a short segment from The Genius of Israel. In March of 2023, the United Nations released its annual World Happiness Report, which ranks each country by its level of happiness. At the top were the usual Scandinavian countries, and one big surprise.
They asked people not actually about happiness, it was about life satisfaction. They asked people to rank their life, to look at their whole life, and to rank it from 0 to 10, how satisfied are you with your life? In Israel, you might think at best would be 50 or 25. Turns out Israel's number 4, up with all the Scandinavian countries.
A year later, after the deadliest terror attack in the country's history, and nearly 6 months of war with Hamas, Israel dropped just one spot to number 5. Compare that to the United States, which plunged from number 15 to number 23 in the same year. Among the world's wealthiest nations, the Jewish state scores high in a variety of areas. At 82.8, Israel has the world's 9th highest life expectancy, 4 years longer than the average American. Israel is also the youngest country, with a median age of 29. That's compared to 38 in the United States, 44 in Europe, and 49 in Japan.
The fact that Israel has such a young population gives again a certain character to the Israeli culture. The fact that you have such a young society means that it's essentially a vote on behalf of the future. When you have 3, 4, 5, 6 or more kids, what you're saying is, I believe in the future.
The country also shows fewer signs of social decay. Israelis have the world's 3rd lowest consumption of alcohol and the lowest rates of so-called deaths of despair, meaning suicide or drug overdose.
We have staggeringly high levels of teen suicide in the U.S. today. We have a teen suicide epidemic. We have high rates of loneliness. We have high rates of experimentation with or addiction to substances, opioids, other drugs, alcohol. Israel doesn't have any of these problems.
And while loneliness is on the rise in most of the developed world, in Israel it decreased by 20% between 2002 and 2016. In the West, studies have blamed teen depression and suicide on smartphones, social media, or 24/7 access to news and politics. Israeli teenagers are exposed to all of that, plus the reality of joining the army and facing combat when they turn 18. And yet, Israel's teen suicide rates are among the lowest in the world, more than 75% lower than the United States.
Israel doesn't have a loneliness crisis. The data bears it out with Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics. So the question is why?
When the UN's happiness report was released in early 2023, Israel didn't look like the ideal place to be, at least on paper. The country was gripped by anti-government protests, and even before the war with Hamas, the Jewish state lived under the constant threat of terrorism. Economically, the news wasn't much better. In 2023, Israel was one of the world's most expensive places to live. But according to the UN report, it's also one of the most satisfying. So what's their secret? Why are Israelis so happy? We want Americans to understand why we support Israel, why Israel is such a vibrant democracy, a vibrant culture. The contrast between the rights of people, and whether that's women or other religious minorities, it's absolutely astounding, the contrast between what Israelis believe, what Israelis practice, what they do, and what happens in these countries that are controlled by Islamic radicals, where if you're in Iran and you're a teenage girl and you don't wear your scarf properly, you could be beaten to death. Or in Hamas, where they have defined gender roles as part of their charter, and this is the only thing that women are allowed to do, is to raise children and keep the home. You look at these differences, and I just want everyone to understand these differences so that we are educated to fight back against this boycott, divestment sanction. The crazy calls that I've just heard from U.S. senators that somehow or other we should stop supporting Israel, stop sending weapons to Israel so it can defend its right to exist. I want you to have it. We're releasing it on September 30, and that's intentional to coincide with the one-year anniversary, if anniversary is even the right word to say. In advance of our memorial service for October 7th, we want the world to know the genius of Israel and just how important that nation is to the Middle East, and how we can identify with all of the goals that Israelis have. You can pre-order a DVD copy and receive 4K streaming access on the release date, September 30 again. And it's for your gift of any dollar amount. What your gift will do is we can do even more documentaries. It'll help support all the humanitarian work we have in Israel, the CBN News Bureau, and these vital films to get the message out of what it's like in Israel today. When you pre-order, you'll receive discussion guides for the film, some video exclusives as well. So call us, 1-800-700-7000, say, you can count on me. Here's my gift for the Genius of Israel. You can also go to geniusofisraelfilm.com, or you can text GENIUS to 80888. Either way, do it now, and so show your support for Israel.